Hey everybody, Dr. Phil here. This is going to be a video on managing public issues and stakeholder relationships. So, public issues. You could really define a public issue a lot of ways, but one is any issue that is of mutual concern to an organization and one or more of its stakeholders. Now, remember, not just shareholders, but stakeholders, people that have any kind of interest in the business at all, financial or otherwise. So, examples of stakeholders could be people that live close to a firm, a company, an enterprise, vendors, customers, employees, not just shareholders. Now, stakeholder expectations. This we could define this as a mixture of people's opinions, attitudes, and beliefs about what constitutes reasonable business behavior. Now, let's now talk about the sort of this performance expectations gap in the context of public issues. So there's a failure to understand stakeholder concerns and to respond appropriately will, and these are just a couple, this is not an exhaustive list, permit the performance expectations gap to grow, obviously. Um, and bear in mind, the larger the gap, the greater the risk of stakeholder backlash or of missing business opportunity. So as an example, the failed electrical grid in Texas. Now, with respect to environmental analysis and intelligence, environmental analysis is a method that managers can use to gather information about external issues and trends. They can use it to develop an organizational strategy that minimizes threats and takes advantage of new opportunities. Now, we can kind of compare that to environmental intelligence, which is the acquisition of information gained from analyzing the multiple environments affecting organizations. Now, competitive intelligence, think about a firm's competitors in any given industry or market, we could define as the systematic and continuous process of gathering, analyzing, and managing external information about the organization's competitors that can affect the organization's plans, decisions, and operations, with a need to comply with all applicable laws and to follow the professional standards of fairness and honesty. Now, how does a company deal with issues that come up? So we'll often call this, maybe more internally, we'll often kind of coin this or describe this as the issue management process. So the first obviously is identify the issue. Anticipating emerging concerns or horizon issues, things that maybe we don't have to worry about right now but are coming up. Um, Analyze the issue. Organizations must understand how the issue is likely to evolve and how it's likely to affect them. Generate options. So what options does the firm have? Now this can require complex judgments that incorporate ethical considerations like the company's reputation. Now, at some point they have to take action. So once an option is chosen, the organization must design and implement a plan of action. And then they have to evaluate the results. So they have to assess the results of the program and make adjustments if necessary. So really, the way that they handle this is not really much different than the way that we all would handle issues. Now, with respect to organizing for effective issue management, part of the organization is mobilized to address a particular emerging issue. It often depends on the nature of the issue itself. It can involve the board of directors and top management levels, of course, depending on what the issue is. If it's bigger, if it's more ramifications, more potentially costly or expensive. Yeah, that's probably true. Effective global leadership on public issues requires three basic capabilities. The first is understanding of the changing business context. Second is the ability to lead in the face of complexity. And third, connectedness, the ability to engage with external stakeholders in dialogue and partnership. Now, with regard to stages in the business stakeholder relationship, over time, the nature of business's relationship with its stakeholders often evolve through a series of stages. So the first stage is inactive. Companies kind of just ignore their stakeholder concerns. They could be reactive. Companies act only when forced to do so. And then, in a defensive manner, they could be proactive. Companies try to anticipate stakeholder concerns. And then finally, interactive. Companies actively engage stakeholders in an ongoing relationship of mutual respect, openness, and trust. So, of course, we would hope for the last two, especially the last one. Drivers of stakeholder engagements. So, stakeholder engagement is, at its core, a relationship. The participation of a business organization and at least one stakeholder organization is, of course, necessary. Engagement both the company and its stakeholders have would be, example would be an urgent and important goal. They both have to have the motivation to participate. It can't just be one side, and the organizational capacity to engage with one another. Now, the role of social media in stakeholder engagement, and obviously, as we know, social media is, preeminent now. It's pervasive, right, all across society and in general. So, address public issues and engage stakeholders, identify and solve problems faster, share information better among their employees and partners, bring customers' ideas for new product designs to market earlier, platforms to engage with multiple stakeholders, communication has become faster and more effective. So here we see kind of a diagram of stakeholder dialogue. So we see on the left-hand side, the business and its stakeholders come to face-to-face conversations. So they have to discuss the core interests and concerns, what are the divergences there, if you will, and then commonly define what is the problem. There has to be an understanding and a concern of all parties, obviously. So it can't just be that, the business gets its way, one group or more of stakeholders just get their way. Has to be probably some compromise, and some, ultimately an agreement. Then they have to invent innovative solutions, and then they have to implement those solutions. So what are the benefits of engagement? Stakeholder organizations bring a number of distinct strengths. First is they can alert companies to emerging issues. They can give a firm access to information via networking, technical or scientific expertise in specific areas, a better result in the eyes of the public, meet the society's expectations and generate good solutions, and improve a company's reputation. All right, just a quick video here. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all in a future video.